Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh and live from Studio West. I've got to say, I have never seen pictures of an earthquake in real time like the ones I'm seeing, because the 7.5 aftershock of the 7.8 earthquake in Turkey and Syria occurred about 10 hours after the initial quake, and therefore reporters were in the street and watching the buildings collapse. It's stunning and awful. We'll keep you updated on that. I'm joined now by Congressman Ryan Zinke. I don't know whether to call him Congressman Zinke or Secretary Zinke because he's been both. He's also been State Rep Zinke. I'm just going to call him Congressman Zinke. How's that, Congressman?
You know, it works out well. The best time I've ever had is Commander because of the SEALs. I think that has the most respect.
That brings up something interesting. The SEALs have operated in this area of the world along the Turkish Syrian border in the past, as did other special operators. To your knowledge, do we have any troops in this area?
You know, the special forces are in 63 countries, spread throughout the world. While we're out of Afghanistan, certainly we are in other places. So there's no doubt it affects our global position. But hearts go out and prayers go out to Turkey because it doesn't look good.
It looks terrible. We will come back to that in the rest of the show with Mike Pompeo coming up. Congressman, I want to talk to you about Montana. I go up there occasionally with our mutual friend Jan Janura, and I fished out the Madison River. But in the course of fishing out the Madison River, I noticed there's a lot of empty space in Montana. I mean, like a lot of empty space in Montana. Could they have brought down the Chinese balloon somewhere in Montana without threat to human life?
Of course, and you break this down, right? First of all, obviously the Chinese lied by saying it was a civilian airship. But what I don't like is when our government does the same. They said the first thing is, this has happened routinely under Trump. I was Secretary of Interior, and I can tell you it did not happen. So that was the first one. The second one, we waited until, we found an area that we could safely bring it down and not have civilian casualties. That's not true either. The Aleutian chain I've operated as a SEAL is one of the most desolate places in the face of the planet. In Montana, Petroleum County, as an example, has less people in it than there are members of Congress.
Ha!
And if you're going to shoot down a balloon, maybe you can recover some of it. Because I've also, been off the coast of Carolinas, and I can tell you the visibility is not great. This is a field of 7 miles. It's an impossibility to do circle searches out there to look for things. And our government plan is what? Ask people to comb the beach, and if you report anything. And lastly,
Ryan Zinke, I want people to understand. We know it flew over the Montana and Nebraska and maybe Wyoming missile fields, but it exited at Charleston, which is where our nuclear submarines get serviced and put in. It's clear what they were doing. They were looking at our triad.
Well, of course, this is intentional, and it was a 60,000, so everyone could look up and see a communist balloon flying overhead. And look, if they were so worried about casualties, maybe they would shut down the border so we didn't have 200 people dying every day from fentanyl. And the last laughable excuse was, we were collecting intelligence off what they were sending. That's like someone, breaking into your home, allowing them to break into your home to see what they steal. So, the 1, 2, 3, and look, if we can't deal with a balloon, how can we deal with Taiwan? And our allies look at this and are baffled. But they, this is consistent baffle from this administration, starting with Afghanistan, a colossal blunder where even the British Parliament censors us. And then that gives a green light to Putin. We have no plan in Ukraine. What are we going to do other than shovel more money and more ammunition to our friends in Ukraine, which have a blank check? I don't like blank checks. And now a balloon. So,
Ryan Zinke, I want to go back, though, because you were Secretary of the Interior, which means you know how vast the space is, not just in Montana. But it simply it defies credibility that they could not have brought this down over the continental United States, either in Alaska, over the Aleutians, in Canada, on the tundra, in Montana, in Wyoming. There were so many opportunities. They chose not to do so. What were they thinking?
Well, I can tell you, in Montana, if you let Montana shoot it down, there'd be a long line. The people in Roosevelt County and Petroleum County, they would want it shot down over their county. So, I think it's a spin doctor from the moment, and the Chinese did collect intelligence and how inept our reaction was. So if that's what they were looking at, whether we were deer in the headlights, they found it.
I'm wondering if you expect balloons to be at the State of the Union tomorrow night. I know you wouldn't bring one in. You're far too dignified for that. But you think someone might sneak in a few balloons?
Well, yeah, I'm hoping not, but we'll see what the president has to say. I doubt if he'll say much about this. He denies inflation. He denies that his policies are a disaster. But this has been a disaster from day one, and continues to be that way. So
now, Congressman, can I ask a political question? I'm hoping that you decide to run for Senate. I know it's early in the term. You got a lot to do, but you got to start raising money if you're going to. When are you going to decide on the Senate race?
Well, I promised Montana, and rightfully so, that I would do my duty. And I'm senior enough to go to appropriations. We got to curb the spending. There's a lot of issues in this country, and it would be a distraction for me to run, while I'm doing the budget this year. I'll look at it after we get the budget done, after we gain some ground, and after we hold this administration accountable. I mean, the House is the last line of freedom, and we're only as good as operating together from a military point of view. Look, you can't have snipers inside the perimeter and over to advance. We got through the speaker race, and now it's the hard task of appropriations and holding this administration accountable. And in order to be effective, we got to work together, and it's going to take a lot of time and work, Hugh.
Now, Congressman, my friend Ken Calvert is chair of Defense Approps. I think it's probably the most important job in the House, and a lot of people don't know about. I don't know if you're on the Defense Approps subcommittee, but to be on Approps means that it's the real deal when it comes to funding the defense budget. We cannot cut it, right? I know there are some Republicans who are talking about cutting defense budget, not Chip Roy. He wants me to make sure everyone understands Chip Roy is not in favor of cutting the defense budget. But what do you say to them? We can't cut the defense budget right now. We have to raise it.
Well, you look at the defense, and believe me, I am pro-defense. Do I think there's savings in there? Absolutely. But I think we got to go through almost a Defense Reorganization Act. Last time it was done in Reagan. I'll give you an example. There are 800,000 DOD employees in Department of Defense. That's larger than the standing United States Army.
These are civilians, right? 800,000 civilians.
Right. And we've created an army of civilians. In our acquisition process, it took 17 years to get the F-35 from concept to fielding. And there isn't a cell phone out there on our listeners that's 17 years old. So we've got to streamline the acquisition process. We got to stop the bulging of the civilian force, because the Department of Defense is fast becoming, a health care and pension fund that happens to make a few bullets. So we need to reorganize. Obviously we do need to stay strong. We need to make sure the weapon systems and the equipment that our troops need on the front line is expedited, and they have what they need to win.
Since you're a special operator, do you think we lack a technical capacity to bring down the balloon exactly where we wanted it? I mean, couldn't one of your buddies in the SEAL parachute team have assisted in putting the shoulder-fired missile into it so it went down at the right place?
Well, it's a little high up there. The highest I've jumped is about 33,000, and that gets very, very complicated. So it's too high to jump and.
Well, that I knew, but I was wondering if they could get up close enough for a good shot to make sure it fell in the right place. So the only thing they've got, their only excuse is the debris field, and I just don't. I'm not buying it. I just don't believe that we cannot bring down a balloon without injuring Americans.
Well, I reject that argument, because we've shown in the Aleutian chain there's not much out there. Montana, don't worry. And you have a bigger chance of hitting stuff, I'm sure, with boat traffic off the Carolinas than you do in Petroleum or Roosevelt County. That's a
good point. You're absolutely right.
Well, the other thing is, look, the debris field, it's a lot easier walking through the plains of Montana than trying to go subsurface in near 10-foot visibility, trying to find a piece of something with the debris field. It's nonsensical to think we're going to find anything unless it's floating on the surface, right? So I've done circle searches, subsurface, searches and patterns. Yeah, it's not that deep, but look at the field. I mean, it would take every SEAL, every diver in the United States Navy a lifetime to go out there and sweep that pattern.
That it just makes me crazier and crazier. Congressman Ryan Zinke, keep coming back. Keep us posted on the work that you're doing and on the decision you're making. What's your website? You can't raise money if you're a Congress, but what's your website, Congressman?
Well, the website is ryanzinke.com and then Ryan Zinke at house.gov.
All right,
follow us, and believe it or not, I think it's fixable, Hugh. We're America.
God bless you and try. And ryanzinke.com, America. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.